Well, hi everybody, and welcome back to On the Road to Safer Senior Driving. Crash data doesn't lie. Joanie Somes here again, retired emergency nurse, working to educate everyone on how to be safer senior drivers, as well as, if you have a safer senior driver, why you want to work to help them be a little bit safer. We talked a little bit about how the age-related road deaths have shifted from being more teenage to the senior driver, and that we even realized that we were starting to see a dip during COVID, and unfortunately we're starting to see an increase again in the last couple of years. One of the things that I pulled from the CDC is said that in 2020 they felt 7,500 older adults were killed in traffic crashes. And you think, that's a lot of people. It comes down to, it's like 20 people a day and about 540 people injured in those crashes. One of the things I want to remind you is, I talked about being older as being 65. Some of the data related to the CDC death rate is that age 70 is even a higher rate. And in fact, it's a higher rate way more than our 35 to 40-year-olds, which you would think we should be driving just as safe, because everybody says old drivers are so slow on the road. So this particular graph I found kind of indicated, the red line indicated how older adults, their deaths were starting to trend up by 2019. And I was able to go in and actually find the number of people who died on our roads over the age of 70. In this case, they were using 70 as being old. And you can see that in 2020, there were over 6,000 people dying across the United States in car crashes. And we do call them crashes rather than accidents, because accident implies we can't prevent them. And the reality is we can do things to prevent crashes. So you're going to hear me calling them crashes. In 2021, the number went up to over 7,500 people died in roadway crashes over the age of 70. And you're going, well, yeah, but that's out in the United States. How are we doing in Minnesota? So I have crash facts from Minnesota, and the first thing I think it's important is to let you know that Minnesota older drivers actually follow the rules. We're good folks. We tend to have fewer fatalities linked to drugs and alcohol, speed. We were wearing our seatbelts and we weren't distracted. However, even though we were good, the number of seniors on Minnesota roads dropped in 2020 and has started to go back up in 2021 and 2022. So we still need to worry about it, even though we're in Minnesota. The rest of the nation, we'll worry about them, but we're going to worry about us more. If you really love numbers, I could give you tons of numbers, but I'm just going to tell you, between 2011 and 2019, the number of crashes involving Minnesota drivers over the age of 65, we're back to 65 again, sorry to bounce back and forth, increased from 13% to 16% in 2019. The injuries themselves in age 65 and older almost doubled. From 2001, only 8% of the injuries in car crashes in Minnesota were seniors. By 2022, 20% of the people involved in a crash were people over the age of 65. So we're getting hurt more, and we need to take action so we're not getting hurt. And I'll talk about why in just a little bit. Here's the Debbie Downer number. Deaths in seniors age 65 and older almost doubled. But to me, the sad and scary fact is, last year in 2023, there were 413 people that died on Minnesota roadways, and of those, 133 were the age of 65 and older. That's 32%. How many grandmas, how many grandpas, how many aunts and uncles that we love died as a result of a car crash? Is there something we can do to make them better? I will tell you, as a baby boomer, I'm in big trouble, because what we've found is that when we hit age 75, we have a higher risk of being killed in a crash. If you look at these particular numbers, you can see that there's less and less people driving or being involved in crashes, but a more and more likelihood of them actually dying when they're in the crash. And why do they die? We think it's because of frailty. What we know is that as we get older, remember we talked about the changes, the physical changes, the psychological changes, we're less able to tolerate being in a crash, and we're less able to recover from those injuries. Also, as seniors, we often have complications and underlying conditions that lead to our death much longer after the crash happens. So for instance, maybe we break our bone because we're a lot more frail. We break our hips, we break our necks, we break our spine bones, we break our chest bones. We're at a higher risk of getting a pneumonia. So the car crash didn't kill us. The pneumonia did, but we wouldn't have had the pneumonia if we hadn't been in the crash. Other things that can cause an older adult to die is laying in bed to recover from maybe a broken hip, ends up leading to a blood clot in their lung and they die from a blood clot. Or they get an infection, or they just can't get around at home and ultimately end up falling and hurting again. So we have found frailty is often a big challenge as we age. And if we get in a car crash, even if we've got a car around us, and you might go, why is Don Quixote on that slide? He's wrapped in metal, just like we all are in a car, and you'd think that that car would protect us. We're not even going to go into motorcycle crashes on seniors who have no cars around them, and they're at a really higher risk. That's kind of what's happening to our seniors, is they're getting crunched in the car, and ultimately they end up being injured despite the fact that they have a car around them. There's a couple of things that go along with this. We know that frailty increases with age, and an increase of 3% of death for every year older you are when you're involved in a crash. The other challenge is, and you might go, why has she got that crazy pink car on there? It's because it's an older car with no safety features. And those cars put seniors at a higher risk, as do the newer cars when seniors turn off the safety features. And we know a lot of you do. So you need to keep the safety features on, because ultimately they're helping to protect you. How can we improve safety? Recognize some of the most common contributing factors in crashes. Failure to yield right away and improper turning and merging is what's causing most of the crashes in seniors. But that left turn, that intersection, is our biggest risk. And it makes sense, because remember, we have trouble seeing, hearing, judging distances and speed, as well as we're slower to respond. That's why these darn roundabouts are really helpful, and we'll talk more about them later, but ultimately, roundabouts keep you from being T-boned. Here's the T-bone, and what happens if your car is hit at an intersection, either because you're turning or because you're going through, one of the risks is your airbag is going to protect your left side. But if you have someone on your right side, they're going to slam into you. And so we need to be very careful when we're going through intersections. We need to be careful when we're making those left-hand turns. And in fact, one of the recommendations is, instead of making a left turn, if it's possible to do 3 right turns, it's a little bit safer, because typically you have the right of way when you're going through an intersection straight rather than attempting to make that turn. I'll often mention also the flashing yellow light. Many times people are confused what to do with that. A flashing yellow light says it's okay to turn, that left turn arrow. It's okay to turn, but you need to be able to clearly see if it's safe. You also need to know your reaction time. You need to know, if I'm going to turn, how long does it take my car to get moving, and how quickly can I go? If it's not safe, don't turn, even if the guy is honking at you behind. And I'm not going to say, give them, the salute, but I'm going to say, be safe when you're out there. We've already talked in a previous session about how we have a slower reaction time. Make sure you know how long it's going to take to make that turn. Make sure you're not being distracted, because this is probably going to put you at a higher risk. In fact, even having a lot of conversation in your vehicle is not a good idea. You need to pay attention to driving. Merging was one of the other times that seniors end up getting in crashes, and ultimately one of the biggest things you can do is to make sure you have your mirrors adjusted so you can see what's going on. Engage your blinker, check and make sure you don't have a blind spot, and go ahead and accelerate out the way you need to. I looked these numbers up because I didn't really know, but how far do you travel in 8 seconds? If you're going 25 miles an hour, you're going 288 feet. At 30 miles an hour, you're going the length of a football field in 8 seconds. If it's taking you that long to make a decision, what's going to happen to your vehicle? The faster you go, the less time you have to make a decision, or the further you're going to travel while you're making it. So it's just one of those things. Beware of your situation. Situational awareness and reaction time awareness is huge. So take some steps to be safer and be a safer senior driver. Come on back next time when we talk about the 7 ways you can keep your keys.